The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 15th day of March, 2022. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Mikemoras, One Communications and Lindos. I'm Jamal Hartman. She's Sherry Vanderpool, and Leanna Lambert will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Sherry, it's Tuesday. How are you today?
Much better, Jamal. I snatched that hour back last night. I took some melatonin, went to my bed early, got up this morning, did a little bit of step aerobics, had a little Celsius, a little bit of coffee, took the circles out because everyone keeps telling me I'm tired. And I'm glowing today and in a fabulous mood, so don't mess it up.
Okay. Why would you tell me not to mess up your fabulous mood? Like, I mean, do I have a tendency to do those things?
You do. And then especially when I messed up your mood yesterday, you're definitely coming from...
Tell the people about that.
Okay, so I was told real quickly and very abruptly that there was a baseball player on the Atlanta Braves that got traded, Freddie Freeman. My nephew told me that he was very upset, and I was like, I don't know who that is, but I am sorry for your loss. And then I proceeded to send Jamal. I was like, Jamal, it's a big deal about... It's like, what? Don't mess up my day. Are you serious, Sherry? And I was just excited, actually, that I broke news to you about sports, to be honest. So, yeah, and then Jamal proceeded to just go on a rampage, and he was mad at me.
Hold on. Can I tell my side story now? What happened?
Okay.
What happened is Freddie Freeman is the Atlanta Brave, most Atlanta Brave since Chipper Jones. Sherry doesn't know who Chipper Jones is. Chipper Jones.
Who the heck's that?
Exactly. You don't reach out to a brother about sports and be like, oh, Jamal, what did you hear about such and such? And it's something bad to do with the team, especially you don't know the kind of day they're having. And to be clear, Freddie Freeman's not going yet, but the chances that he will be going soon. So anyway, that's what Sherry does during the day. She finds ways to try to upset a brother, and we're not tolerating it, folks. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making us part of your daily routine. Another good one today as we welcome Adrian Hartnett-Beasley and as well as Zakia Johnson-Lord on the show from OUTBermuda. We're going to discuss the Privy Council ruling regarding the right to marry in Bermuda. The Daily Play is a remember when to a bit of history for our dear sister and audience. So, folks.
And he's mad at me, so this is going to be good.
Yeah. See, this is what people love to say. It's just a game. That, saying it's just a game is so hurtful. It hurts our feelings, You telling me that sport is just a game is hurtful. Respect my feelings.
And then Sam Cat, I didn't know the person's name. He said, are you talking about Freddie Freeman? I said, yes, that's his name.
And he hasn't been traded yet, but the Braves brought in a replacement, assuming that he'll be out. But, real quickly, before we get into today's show, I was looking, for some reason, I just went on Twitter to see what was trending, and very sad news. The singer Khalees bring, the milkshake to the yard girl.
Yes, Khalees.
It looks like at 37 years old, her husband, Mikemoras, has died from stage 4 stomach cancer.
Yeah, he's been battling with cancer for a while.
Wow, that's so sad, man. And this comes on the back of the weekend. It looks like one of the, and I didn't know, again, I'm not into pop culture. I got criticized on Friday by some in the audience for not getting any of Cher's questions right because of my lack of knowledge with pop culture. But the passing of Toni Braxton's sister as well, Tracy Braxton.
Tracy.
So
Mhm.
only 50 years old, but very, very so sad. So many young people, and obviously, it hits home because losing my mom, who I was very young in my opinion as well,
Yes.
2 times. So thoughts are with all of those who are going through it. Trust me,
Mhm.
it's not easy. But today we will be discussing the Privy Council ruling, and I think I said something on Twitter yesterday, and it's something about how they say if you are confused by what someone's saying via text, pick up the phone because so much can get lost in translation through text.
Absolutely.
So I said on Twitter, right? Because I don't know if they have a strategic team at Out Bermuda or something, but because I'm like, nah, I think they have this one if they redo their strategy, and we'll talk to them about that. But I put, as I stated on the show yesterday, only 30 countries in the world allow for same-sex marriage. I said SSM. Many countries that don't allow SSM, inclusive of Qatar, UAE, Singapore, Thailand, Jamaica, Cayman Islands, TCI, etc., are doing just fine comparatively speaking. It's not doomsday, just a disappointing day for many. And that was a response to many on the show yesterday who were acting like, oh, this is bad. Tourism's going to... Look, Bermuda tourism doesn't suck because we don't have, marriage in Bermuda. Bermuda doesn't suck because of that. Bermuda sucks for other reasons. That's my point, folks. That's the overall point. For you to take this, and again, context is important, but that's why I say I don't argue back and forth on social media when I have a mic where I can provide
Yeah.
that clarity for you. If you choose not to watch or listen, that's on you. But the question of the morning, Sherry, before we bring our guest in a bit later, is what do you believe the right to marry Privy Council ruling means for Bermuda? And again, I'm trying not to say same-sex marriage because people cannot eliminate the idea of sex out of their mind when we're talking about the rights of people. Yeah, and seriously. So the question is, again, folks, I'm going to read it for you. What do you believe the right to marry Privy Council ruling means for Bermuda? What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? And let me be very clear. It's okay to agree with the ruling. It's okay to disagree with the ruling. I'm not here
Mhm.
to judge you. I'm in no place to judge you. But I really want to know what your thoughts are. What do you think this means for Bermuda? Do you think that I remember when we lost our case to end conscription in Bermuda, and the words of Dr. the Honorable former Premier Ewart Brown, he stated, conscription will end one day. Man, that pissed me off. It pissed me. What do you mean one day? Brother, you have the right to end it right now. You can end it right
Right.
now. Now, keep in mind, while we were being hounded by goons and arrested because we were fighting to end conscription, there were murders taking place in Bermuda. My face was plastered on the front page before those being brought before the courts of a murder. My story was top story on the news before those being plastered. Trust me, I can relate and I get this.
Mhm.
So when the Dr. Brown said conscription will end, that was 2010. It didn't end until 2018. I think it would be unfair of the government if they truly and consciously believe that people deserve the right to marry to wait another 8 years to give them what they're asking for. Well, what are your thoughts? I know, Sherry, you're biting at the bit.
Well, because I'm seasoned, I lost it real quick just now. Um, but I don't think whether the ruling is right or wrong for in regards to Bermuda, and I think it's a couple of separate different things, and everyone is joining them all together. It's like you said, the ruling has no bearing on whether Bermuda does well.
Mhm.
Does it help? Yeah, of course, anything would help at this point.
Yeah.
But to separate, it's just like saying, oh, they didn't pass law in regards to cannabis. Oh gosh, Bermuda's not going to do well. They're not passing law in regards to being able to just fish whenever you want. So we can't have fishing people done. You can make excuses on and on in regards to what can be done in regards to assist in Bermuda. So for me, I'm saying take that out. To me, that is a whole different conversation. It's down to what does this do for the rights of the people who wish to marry, whether it is same sex or not? And what is it, how does that affect that group and the culture that we are living in? And how much does it affect Bermuda? I don't think it affects Bermuda per se as an island. You see what I'm saying? But it does affect the people, yes.
I believe someone may have said it yesterday that private companies, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, some of the big corporations, which is acknowledging people's marriages, then really, who cares what the government does or says?
Got you.
But I think it's the next move by the government is going to be very important. And I say it's going to be very important because what are you going to do? Just end it? Like say, okay, things have been ruled in our favor and we're just going to go obliged by the court. See, I think, I stated yesterday in private conversation that I do think that the campaign and proponents for marriage got it wrong the same way that we did with Bermudians Against the Draft. I think they got it wrong. And I'm looking forward to the conversation with our guest today. Spoke to a friend of mine yesterday in Pennsylvania who watches the show all the time, and she's married to someone of the same gender as well. And I told her I love her. Her and I speak almost every day. But one of the things I said is, and she's not one of these people, and it's something I had to learn from being in Bermudians Against the Draft and fighting to end conscription. And it's not necessarily those who want, to be married or fighting actual people involved. Sometimes it's their supporters, right? And you see it all over social media. You see it. You don't want to alienate the very people you want support from. That's something that I had to learn while we were fighting to end conscription. We got it wrong because we believe that because conscription had ended decades ago in the UK, that, Britain's going to understand this and they're going to end it. And they just reverted back to our own constitution in Bermuda. And I think that kind of what many thought in this case. Well, it's allowed in the UK. They're just going to, go along. Now, the difference is we lost all three, Supreme Court of Appeals and Privy. They won two of the three and lost at the highest court, right? But I think that's where we both went wrong. We didn't lobby the decision makers who can actually fix this. Instead, we went publicly and dragged them before their beliefs. We went, anyone who disagreed with us, we called them evil and hateful. And that's where we went wrong. That's not the way to win over anything. That to me is not going to do it. So now, once you get over it, which we had to do, you say, you know what? Let's revisit how we're going to do this. Yeah. And you know how we did it with Bermudians Against the Draft? We went for what does every politician care about most? Getting reelected. So our strategy shifted after we lost in the Privy Council, and we said, we're going for the politician, the very thing they hold dear to themselves, and that is being reelected. So we said, we're having a no vote campaign. After the PLP got eliminated, the One Bermuda Alliance, led by Michael Dunkley after Craig Kennener, both told, they'll get rid of it. They didn't. Okay, we went nowhere. The PLP put it in their platform in 2017. The PLP delivered it from their platform in June 2018. My advice to OUTBermuda, my advice to anyone proponent of bringing the ability to marry to Bermuda of the same gender is don't be ashamed to look at the case of Bermudians Against the Draft and watch how our 13 to 15-year run led to eventual victory. Because one of the things we realized over time, I repeat, we could not alienate the people we needed to make the changes.
Yeah.
It was that simple. Sam Cat Play
Mm-hmm.
says, in all honesty, I get what the group is saying about SSM, but I don't think there will be any impact on us. Money talks, business will go on. Bermuda business is not going to stop. I said this yesterday. I agree. I do agree. I don't think, when people were saying that, oh, tourism's already sucks this and that, folks, having worked in tourism, working outside of Bermuda in different organizations, honestly, the number one goal for all these companies and organizations is revenue, money. Secondly, watch this. It's optics. It's optics. If they could, remember last week is International Women's Day, and all these companies were speaking so highly of women, and that one Twitter account was calling them out. Well, you pay women 40% less. You pay women this or that. Folks, stop the fear mongering. Stop the fear mongering. Karen Timmons.
Well, the right to marry is where I stand. Government/law should have no say in that as it affects those persons and their family, and being able to make decisions and support each other. Yeah.
I just repeat what I said yesterday in regards to it. I think the idea of the rights of people coming down to a referendum is disgusting. It's something that should never be done. If Abraham Lincoln had pushed for a referendum, knowing the majority of people in the United States at the time were white, do you really think the enslavement of black people would have ended? No. You know, when a white woman is calling for a referendum for the end of conscription, when she is not at risk of being conscripted, do you think that's fair? So why should a referendum be held to decide, non-binding, by the way, the rights of people's ability to marry? I want to do a poll, though, because I want to see something. How many of Bermudians actually care whether or not people are allowed to get married at this point? Because it seems like people care more about being able to feed themselves. That's what it seems like people care more about these days.
I guess it depends on who you ask.
Yeah. And that's why we're asking the audience. They all have different opinions. The other thing is, look, one of the things, and this would be my advice to anyone who's a proponent of, the right to marry. Not everyone, I said it earlier, not everyone who disagrees with you hates you. People have that right to disagree with you. You know, I've always said I'm not a fan of inclusivity. I don't want to be any place where I'm not wanted. Do not bend rules to include a black person like me for optics, because it's not going to be cool. It's not going to work out. So I disagree with the whole equality thing. I've said that from jump. I don't believe in equality. Not this black man. Equity, maybe. I've said this for decades and years. Think about our conscription fight. We didn't want to be included. We were fighting to be excluded. It was completely different. So, again, lessons learned. I thought everyone who disagreed with our fight for conscription hated black men. But guess what I realized today? They just needed to be educated about what conscription was.
Makes a difference.
Education helpful, Sherry.
Yeah, if you're not informed, you can't make an informed decision either.
This is it.
You know,
this is it. Anyway, question, folks. What do you believe the right to marry Privy Council ruling means for Bermuda? Jawan Hayward for you, Sherry.
In terms of the legal benefits, do domestic partnerships provide all the same legal benefits as marriage?
We'll have to ask out Bermuda that question.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, it's about recognition, whether it's recognized or not. Ciola Wilson, she says, well, if you ask me, I could care less. A total waste of taxpayers' time and money. As I said yesterday, and this is not directed at you, Ciola, but yesterday I said anyone complaining about the cost it took to fight this, I told them shut up. I told them shut up. And I mean that, because not one hypocrite complaining about the cost right now said a damn thing when this government took Bermudians against the draft all the way to the Privy Council. Why? Because 14 black men looks very different than a diverse group of people fighting something. So no, the cost doesn't bother me. They could have spent $2 billion to take it to court. That doesn't bother me. It's one's conscience that bothers me more. So
Any
no, I
reason
don't
you
have an
have to
issue
do
with that
that.
personally. It's about conscience. I think that's a weak argument to me, complaining about the government's cost, the taxpayers' cost on this, especially after they won at the Privy Council. No, don't bother me with that. Speak to me about the consciousness of it, because ain't a damn person say a damn thing. If anything, you all supported your taxpayers' dollars being used, guess what, for a QC to fight against 14 black men. See, you can't come to me with that, folks. Not today, not any day. Teresa and Marie says, agree, laws should protect people, not simply beliefs, but religion, more than money is, and it has always been the root of all evil. Yes, laws should protect people, but we have to remember and think about when most laws were created.
Especially in Bermuda.
Yeah. Let's bring Leanna in for the conversation. We have two important guests coming up. They will be able to provide more context on a lot of this. Many of us only know what we've seen in the news. One of the things I want to say to people is, one thing I learned from being in court throughout the conscription cases, a lot of what's reported in the news is not everything, nowhere close to what's being argued and discussed and debated. Keep in mind, that's why there's a 78, 79 page document that you should probably, myself included, read, because everything in that judgment isn't down to a paragraph or 2 or 3 that you'll see in the news. Let's bring Leanna in for the conversation. She's got some news for you, I'm sure. Good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. You know what? I am just I'm taking all of Sherry's energy right now, and she came in this morning about I worked out, I feel great, I had Celsius. I just want to just take that energy through this computer screen right now and just be like, yes.
So are you a coffee or tea person?
I'm a bit of both. I'm a bit of both. Coffee makes me a little fidgety and a little erotic sometimes. It's just yeah, no.
Really? How about you, Sherry?
Coffee.
I've never had coffee, you know.
Right now, really? I have coffee and moringa mix. Trying to, you know.
I'm a chai latte person these days.
I like a latte.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
I'm a mocha.
I'm drug free. Lee, over to you. Folks, we have some guests coming up. Adrian and Zakia out Bermuda. We're going to be discussing the situation, the ruling from the Privy Council in more depth. But Lee, over to you for now. Give it to us. Make it positive. Make it good. Tell us it's not going to rain.
I'm going to try. Thanks, Jamal and Sherry, and good morning to everyone that's tuned in with us on this tantalizing Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a great start to their day. I'm Leanna Lambert, and it's time for the Daily Hour News Break, brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Well, in today's top stories, investigators who are looking into a double shooting at Devonshire Recreational Club have officially released video footage. Now, police say that the video, which circulated social media over the weekend, was leaked, but not by authorities. The video illustrated the attack, which showed the arrival of a motorcycle outside the club with the passenger dismounting, shooting, and advancing on the main entrance of the club. Now, police confirmed that the 2 persons injured during the attack, a man and a woman, have been released from hospital with injuries not considered to be life-threatening. Now, the victims, aged 30 and 24, were taken to hospital in a private vehicle after the double shooting, which was reported to police by several 911 calls at 11:40 p.m. last Thursday. Detective Sergeant Jason Smith could not say whether the attack was believed to have links to gang activity. However, he stated that we must all do our part to make our community safe so that all of us can enjoy the freedom and movement in the community that we desire. Now, anyone with information can call the main police line on 295-0011 or contact Mr. Smith directly on 717-0864. The public can also use the independent and confidential Crime Stoppers hotline on 800-8477. In other news, government was last night blasted after it sacked staff at the COVID-19 test lab at the forefront of the island's battle against the coronavirus. Now, according to a report in the RG, staff at the lab accused civil servants of an attempt to dismantle the lab and destroy the legacy of Dr. Kariko Weldon, who quit as head at the end of January. Now, the report said that a statement was sent to the media which claimed that 80% of staff at the MDL would be dismissed. Now, they called the move a quote-unquote slap in the face to all of the workers who spent tireless days and nights for the country they loved, and said not a word of gratitude was given from top civil servants or MPs and or ministers. It seems that the staff was only good when it made them look good. Now, the statement claimed that staff had signed contracts last December to run to the end of June, but they had been changed to the end on March 31st instead. Affected staff were later told that their last working day would be March 18th, although they would be paid until the end of April. Now, a spokesperson for the Cabinet Office said that the cost of the molecular diagnostics laboratory in Warwick was not sustainable as the pandemic appeared to wane. Now, she insisted that the termination of the short-term contracts of some MDL staff was required as the need for tests had dropped, but refused to say how many of that staff would be let go. And health officials last night revealed that the island has logged another COVID-19 related death. The news brought the total number of fatalities from the pandemic to 125. Now, the number of active cases jumped to 257 as 139 new infections were detected in the more than 100 test results that came back between last Wednesday to Saturday. Now, there are 9 people in hospital, but none are in the intensive care. Taking a look at today's weather, we have a high near 70 and a low near 62 degrees. We'll see some sunshine this morning with showers off to the east. High pressure maintains mostly dry weather today. However, a weak trough invades from the east and may produce a few showers later this afternoon into tonight. Now, the tail end of a warm front brings the risk of rain or showers on Thursday before a weak cold front passes on Friday. Temperatures gradually rebound through the week. That's all for our daily hour news break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Now let's head back to Jamal and Sherry in the studio for today's Daily Focus.
All right, Lee. Thanks for that, Sherry. What you got days of the year, sister?
Today is World Social Work Day, so right up my alley. And this day is a global organization of social workers advocate for social justice, human rights, social development, while promoting the best practices in social work. So, when you see a social worker like myself, go out there and say Happy Social Work Day. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep advocating for families and children who have gone through abuse, neglect, and so forth. We need support.
Well, happy Social Worker Day, Sherry.
I gotta go on WhatsApp. Hey, sis, Sherry just said it's Happy Social Worker Day, so happy social worker. Keep doing your thing out there. You know what I'm saying?
Why is he this person?
Just sent my sister a WhatsApp. Happy Social Worker Day. Yeah. All right.
So he won't forget.
I literally would forget if you. Anyway. You know what?
He tried. You
have a wonderful day, sister. All right.
Thank you, guys. You have a great day.
Hug your social worker, Lee.
Yes, I've got friends that are social workers. I'm going on the line now, like Jamal.
You didn't say nothing about hug. Come on now. You didn't say about touching people and stuff. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break. Stick with us, folks. We'll be right back with our guests after this.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's, I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Hi, I'm Karen, a nurse at the old folks home. These long hours used to kill my feet until my hairdresser told me about a great place to buy a pair of clogs. Medical House. Finally, relief. They also carry uniforms in bright, bold colors. And not to mention the support stockings.
Karen, Miss Soltis bet her bet again.
Oh gosh, these days, I need all the support I can get.
Medical House has relocated next to the Dendy Town Field, number 6 Bakery Lane, Pembroke.
This month, John Barrett & Son bring us a premium thirst quencher from North Carolina, the Blue Ultra Purified Water. Many other bottled waters use reverse osmosis to reach an acceptable level of purity. Le Bleu uses a 5-step purification process, which includes fractional vapor compression, distillation, and ozonation, assuring purity and a unique, appealing flavor. Consumer testimony repeatedly praises the taste of Le Bleu compared to the other brands, and this, along with superior purity, makes Le Bleu a must-try. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Alrighty. Welcome back to the big show. She's Sherry Vanderpool. I'm Jamal Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by Medical House, One Communications, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. People are sending happy social worker day to us, Shana Smith says, and Karen from happy social work day to you, and Teresa and Marie, you're valuable people. You're valuable people. And I appreciate the work you do. Trust me, I have chats with social workers, and I'm like, you all need some social workers for what you do. Seriously.
Sending love to all of family services. Definitely, my family.
Sending love. But look, let's get to our conversation. We've got Adrian and Zakia on backstage. I think they're ready to come on, and they're probably fired up, jumping at the bit. Let's bring them into the show. Welcome, both of you, and good morning.
Good morning, Jamal. Good morning, Sherry. How are you?
Hi, Adrian.
Happy Social Worker Day, Sherry.
Happy Social Work Day, indeed.
I know it.
Let's get right to the conversation. Obviously, yesterday we tried to bring it to people live, the ruling, but unfortunately we caught the end and it went right into the Cayman Islands case. But you're obviously disappointed with the result. Let's be frank. We're probably, most people are disappointed. But speak to us about what you believe the ruling means for Bermuda and Bermudians.
Sure. Adrian, want me to kick it off for one?
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us. Let me start there. And also just, while we were listening backstage, I had so many thoughts. And so I wanted to first encourage people, read the judgment. I can't stress it enough, is that it's long. One, misery loves company. I read 79 pages. I encourage other people to do the same. But in addition is that, I don't want people on either side. In no place did it say that anyone anywhere doesn't think that same-sex couples should marry or should be together. That wasn't what they said. And that's important to note. That is, it's just that they could not bar the discrimination, and Adrian could do a better job. Secondly, in relation to one of the points you made about how you engage with conscription and name calling, I laughed out loud back here, because in no world can Adrian, myself, my colleagues at Bermuda, we can't name call. You won't find places where we have personally name called, particularly for a group that's already been stigmatized and denigrated, to use the words out of the judgment, is that we just don't have that luxury. And so we're just not in a position to pick on the people who oftentimes, can have an impact on our community members. And then that one other point, 3, you talked about the money and it doesn't bother you. It bothers me, right? Not just for the optics, but that's the public purse and the numbers that have been shared. There's no way those numbers are correct. Not for something to have gone on so long and to involve so many people.
What numbers are you referring to?
So I saw an article, I think last week, was about $400,000, right? That's what they said. And I laughed out loud, literally wanted to.
Oh, you're talking about the cost for the case.
The cost of the case. And I know you saying
let me be clear though, because sure. I to defend my point, I do not care for my personal reasons, because they spent just as much money on a case that involved 14 black men. That's not to put that on anyone else.
Got it. Helpful. Because I was like, it was a lot of money, particularly during the pandemic, that didn't have to be spent. And also remember, we don't have a public purse. Yeah. Right? Bermuda didn't. Yeah. Right. We got dragged into this case. And then
Zakia. Yeah, and just Jamal, to talk about the money as well. You made a really good point. You were saying we were applying to the courts to not be included. The difference here, and again, I was a big fan of the work that you guys had done, but to draw a comparison there, marriage already existed, So the money being spent, marriage existed. The government was spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to take something away. And in the reverse was you guys, like you said, the government was sort of, girding their loins and spending all that money to keep conscription in place. And so it was that kind of the interplay there. And so the money I think Zakiya and I talk about is especially it's even tonal, like where we are right now in the pandemic, spending $400,000, and that's not the total. The government hasn't disclosed how much the salaries of the people that already work at the Attorney General's chambers, how much internal government time was spent. To put a dollar figure on how much MP time was spent on it, that kind of thing. The number is much more inflated.
Quick question on that, because I'm just going to be honest. They were evil to us in our case in this respect. When they won at the Privy Council, they went after us for cost, right? Are they going after people for cost? Do you know?
We don't know yet.
We don't know, but we hope
that would be downright evil. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm sorry. That to me, and if you don't understand what that means, folks, I'm not going to do the work for you. Like Zakiya said, read the case, because as I stated earlier, we only see what's in the newspaper or read on the news. We have to go and read the cases to get a clear understanding of what each judgment means. But that said, can you break down just the key points, like break down why the Privy Council sided with the government? Because you just made a clear point. But break it down for those who may have just seen it in the news and think, oh yes, they it's not happening. We're going to keep our whatever Bermuda.
Sure. So Zakiya's done the work, the 79 pages and copious notes. We've obviously, as you expect, we've been disappointed, but preparing for this show and other media appearances, thematically, think about the judgment as saying, and not in exact words, but this is how we're taking it. It's not that we're opposed to marriage equality. It's that OUTBermuda, Ferguson, other plaintiffs, your constitution does not protect you. And so that's the thematic thing. Your constitution does not protect you in the way that other constitutions protect other people. And it's very interesting, Jamel and Sherry, on the same day that the results came out, I saw in the Royal Gazette that the Attorney General's Chambers is going to be launching constitutional reform. Now, I fully expect constitutional reform in that regard is not related to this particular case. It might be related to marijuana, it might be related to independence, it might just be bringing our 50-year-old constitution into the 21st century. Except it's just very interesting. One of the quotes was, we need this constitution to be managed and looked at by the younger generation to make it fit for Bermuda today and Bermuda tomorrow. And so I'm actively waiting for my invite to sit on that panel to talk about what constitutional reform looks like, because as Zakiya was going through those 79 pages, one of the things that she highlighted was, where else did this constitution not protect us? Where does it not protect Black people in Bermuda? Where does it not protect LGBTQ people? Where does it not protect women? Where does it not protect fundamental rights that we think we have and we don't? Because what we have seen is that rights are literally and figuratively changed by the stroke of a pen. And that's what it comes, that's what it comes down to. So to answer your question, thematically, Constitution did not protect us in the way that we thought it would. We made a number of arguments that were novel, that might have been, the dissenting judgment. If you're going to read anything in the 79 pages, read the dissenting judgment, i.e. the judge from the UK Supreme Court Privy Council that supported OUTBermuda. It is a damning indictment of how the Privy Council handled it. And we think actually a lot of the points that he raised are really valid. And in fact, I think it's going to be talked about for a long time.
Yeah.
I want to say, someone said so succinctly yesterday in text. I shared some of the quotes from the dissenting voice, and it is cruel in its clarity. Like if you read it, even personally, if I was going to be, it was hard to read, right? The ways in which they just broke down what this discrimination means, right? What it means to not be validated, to be seconded, to be put to the side, to have your relationship, all the ways in which marriage has been an institution, religious or not, throughout the years, and to deny it And to be given a chance to give it to us, take it back. What that means, I mean, they go on and on and on, which is what the law does, right? They take different jurisdictions, they take different examples. But to sit there like myself, I was by myself reading it alone and just reading around the ways in which, even broader than one would even imagine, right? What we actually get through marriage. It was hard to read, I'll just be honest. And also I will say there is no world on either side for me. Like, Bermudians are smart folks on all, even if I don't agree with them, I do believe that we are smart. And you cannot tell me there's a world in which they believe that separate but equal is equal. They cannot sell me that. There's a cookies I will not eat. I refuse, because it's just not true. Like, and I can use so many examples where we know, any marginalized group knows, you can give me something and tell me it's the same thing, but if it doesn't have the name that yours has, or doesn't, this is not a case where it looks like a rose, smells like a rose, it's a rose. This is not that. This is not where that adage applies. And they are trying to convince us that it is, and it isn't. And history would show us examples where it is just not. And so, I mean, no one can come to me with that and have me believe that they believe it. I just don't.
If you have any questions or comments for Zakia or Adrian, we'll do our best to get through as many as possible. I think you both said it already, right? And my quick read yesterday, I was just like, the Privy Council actually gave themselves an out by using the Bermuda Constitution. That's how it came across to me. Yes. Like that was their out for it, and it's concerning. It should concern many Bermudians, because what they basically said, if I remember correctly, is that the Constitution overrides the Human Rights Act of 1981, which is crazy when you think about it. But from your standpoint, what concerns you most about this ruling for Bermudians, period?
Adrian, I would love you to weigh in, but I also think, I said this online yesterday, anybody cheering today or yesterday, they're cheering for inequality. And that to me is concerning, regardless of what that inequality takes the form of, right? Particularly when you put it under a microscope. Many things cannot stand up to the test of like real scrutiny. And most people's discrimination cannot stand up to real scrutiny, right? Like, I cannot think of an example when you go down to a thing and you get close and you magnify it. You're like, actually, no, this is still, no. And so for us to still be like, people still holding fast to this idea when we have expanded on it, looked at it, we've had years of same-sex, couples being in marriages, and you're still holding fast to the idea of like, yeah, but no, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I think it's a bad idea. And so I worry that we cannot be a country or a world where we get used to and cheer for inequality, because that is problematic, right? And we have so many other examples where it's like, they come for me today, they'll come for you tomorrow. And, I worry about that, right? People should be very uncomfortable. And if they are cheering, they should cheer in very small font and very quietly for themselves, because some wins just are not wins. And that's how it feels, for anyone, is that the way they laid it out, I mean, they should make it very difficult even for the other side to cheer, which it seems like since I haven't seen any public notices or posts about it.
Yeah. And Jamel, I think to pick up on what Zakia said, there is the cheering today and yesterday, and actually I haven't seen a lot of real public cheering. I don't actually believe the government has released a statement yet on what they're going to do, and we should talk about what we think the government needs to do next. But there's a feeling, I see it in the Royal Gazette commentary, I see it online commentary, and Jamal, if you're like me, I can't get involved in every conversation that happens, but one of the concerns I have is that there is a sentiment of and I'm torn here, so I will lay my cards out here. I'm Bermudian. I don't actually want courts from overseas or governors from overseas telling us what we do here. That's problematic for me. But the concern I have is I hear a sentiment of, the government passed it and courts shouldn't be allowed to make law or change law. That's not what the courts are there for. We have democratically elected officials, and that's what their job is to pass laws. Correct. but they're politicians at the end of the day. And you yourself said it, after you lost your Privy Council case, you went directly to the votes and you played on the political aspirations or security of those MPs, and that's how you moved forward. And so I just wanted to highlight that at no point anywhere has a majority of Bermudians stated that they do not want same-sex marriage. Nowhere. As you said, there was an invalid, non-binding referendum where people didn't even bother to show up. The only anecdotal evidence we have are polls, scientific polls that Bermuda commissioned in 2016 and 2020 that clearly show a huge groundswell and change of opinion of Bermudians aged 18 and above. So all voting age, all Bermudians, so no non-voting people, no expats were in the vote. So I just want to be very clear, it's not Bermuda population, it's voting age Bermudians. The groundswell of support changed dramatically in favor of marriage equality in terms of what that looks like. So this, I want to just be very clear, there's no like, oh, the majority wanted it. No, prove it to me. Show me the data, because I've not seen that data at all.
Right. And excuse my side face and all that, because I'm really listening and taking it in. So I don't want anyone to think
one of my ears works better too. So I
because Jamal gets all type of but he's really just thinking and taking it in. But what do you believe are the proponents of this marriage bill, and what could have been done differently?
I mean, Adrian probably has a legal frame. I was very shocked when the Domestic Partnership Act even came forward. Rest in peace, Walton Brown. I was shocked. I was like, well, I'm sorry, who put it forth and why? And I will quietly, and I have been reluctant, is that the Domestic Partnership Act is a well-written act. And the judgment really highlights that. Whoever wrote it, which I'm sure it's somebody I know, some Black woman over in there who is smart, is probably my age, because I'm getting up in my mid-40s, who's brilliant. His brilliance is on this document. Whether they believe it or not, I do not know, but it's not a poorly written piece. And they fortified their position in ways that I admire logistically and are disheartened by personally, right? And so there are, the arguments will say, like, a lot of the rights you need are in here. And I was like, yeah, but if it was the same, you wouldn't need to call it something else. And so that to me is really important. And
but I think that question, though, because I don't want to get out of time, that question is asking, what are you, the proponents?
Yeah.
What do you all believe you could have done differently?
Zakia, you should read that quote from the judgment about the 5 years later.
Yeah.
You highlight that. I think you should highlight that, because that's very interesting, because we have to put ourselves in a position where, like, we started this 5 years ago. Well, OUTBermuda started 4 years ago, but it's been going on 5 years. What could we have done differently? Jamal, like you said, we could have gone for hearts and minds, right? We could have started working with the community. We could have done a groundswell. We could have met with church leaders. We could have met with community leaders. We could have met with politicians. We could have started doing it that way and created a better base of support. So, riding that wave and building that support. But at the time, 4 years ago, I mean, OUTBermuda was we're still young, but it's an infant, not us personally, but we were an infant charity with no standing. We didn't have clout. We had no, we weren't being invited to, to talk on talk shows. We weren't getting asked for our quotes. We weren't being asked our thoughts on stuff. And we were sort of, we were pulled into the marriage equality fight. And if we had to do something differently, nothing legally, I think our team, led by Rod Attright-Sterling and Mark Pettingill, did a stellar job. Like, we did everything we could have, and we managed it incredibly well. And as Zakia said, we also managed it with grace. Like, you don't find anywhere where OUTBermuda is name calling. We recognize that irrespective of how this comes out, we still have to work with this government and the next government and, the third party and the third sector. Like, we're, trying to get LGBTQ sensitivity training in schools, in the prisons, in the police service. We can't do that if we're denigrating the people that, hold the power. Also, we didn't have the leverage. So in terms of legally, there's nothing we could have done differently. However, we could have done a completely different, groundswell working with the community first. We still wouldn't have marriage equality today if we'd done it that way. And we certainly wouldn't have had it in 2018. And that I do want to talk about what happens to the couples, the many couples that have married from 2018 to 2022 at some point.
Well, with that being said, and you did mention a little bit earlier, Adrian, that, there are some next steps. So let the audience know what are some of those next steps for OUTBermuda or for yourselves?
Oh, thanks, Sherry. It's interesting. I'm going to segue slightly. It was when everyone was talking about Happy Social Work Day. I Googled it really quickly, and I don't know if you know this, but the theme for this year is co-building a new eco-social world, leaving no one behind. And that really resonates with me and OUTBermuda board, because that's how we feel. Like we recognize that OUTBermuda's work exists because our LGBT community is being left behind. Not unlike a lot of other sub-communities within Bermuda. And that would be a whole nother daily 24-hour show if we wanted to get into that. But talking specifically about LGBTQ people, we're doing a lot of great work. We've just expanded our board. We have 8 board members now. We're in the process of hiring a full-time person. And I think the recognition that our work is important has never been reinforced more than it was yesterday, when a lot of our straight allies who think of marriage equality as the only issue facing the gay community, that came crashing down around us, because not only do we not have that, there's a bunch of other issues, like the people we support, like a 18-year-old Black queer kid, who's at a public school in Bermuda, has nowhere to live because he's aged out of the home and his parents don't want him. Like, those are the issues. That little man, he is not thinking about marriage. Like, that is so far from what his reality is. So it's easy for Zakia and I, mid-40, married with kids, like we both have kids, like that's our frame. But the people we're really trying to help, they need therapy. They need social workers. They need their guidance counselors, not to say, well, it's a choice, you shouldn't be, you better just, they don't need conversion therapy. And that's the community where, and I'm going to burst into tears right now, because that's the community we're really looking to help here. Yet marriage is great, and there's a big lens on it. And in Bermuda, marriage, once you have marriage equality, all the other rights sort of tick fall in place really easily. In the US, it's not that way. But in Bermuda, marriage is a thematic thing. And I think also, Sherry, what your main question is, what are we doing next? And I just wanted to talk about, we're sort of taking a step back and going, whoa, what do we need to do now? And OUTBermuda is driven by our community. So the first thing we're going to do is go back to our community and say, what do you want us to do? Where do you want us to put our efforts? Where do you want us to put the money? Where do you want us to put resources? And I think the narrative here, and this is the thing that the thing that makes me the most mad yesterday, was not, and as I wasn't worried about today our community facing more taxes. I wasn't worried about today our community going to jail. I wasn't worried about today our community having rights stripped away from them. Because I feel like this issue is something we can manage. It's not great, but thematically, was getting prepared for the narrative to swing in the other way. Because at the end of the day, this is my personal belief, it's not OUTBermuda, marriage equality, the issue here, and as Zakia says, if you hone in on and think about what marriage equality means, you look at discrimination, you pick it apart. Once you get down to it, it's really not about that. Because quite honestly, mostly in Bermuda, this is anecdotal, but my personal experience, most people in Bermuda, they kind of don't care about marriage equality. They don't like the idea of two guys having sex, right? And to get real clear, it's the ick factor for people going, oh, it's two people having sex, gays, the Bible, and then that issue permeates throughout everything that comes out of my mouth.
We're running out of time, and then Sherry has another question, but I just want to ask you, define real quickly, what is marriage equality?
You describe marriage, and I will just say ditto, because what it means to straight people, that's equality. It means that Zakia said it earlier, if you have to design a domestic partnership act and spell it all out, draft it and prepare it and go through whatever, you don't need that. So it's clearly not equal. Marriage equality is whatever exists, we should have equity and equality. I know, Jamel, you don't love the word equality, but that's where it is.
I think you're asking for equity, but I'm just
we're asking for it not to be different. Like I paid $900 to change my name. Your wife paid nothing. I've paid nothing. $900.
Me too.
Right.
My name, and I'm still got the same last name. They didn't even put a hyphen. They just added a last name to my other name. Got 5 names in triple median style, boom with 4, and 5. And they charged me $900 to literally write my name on green paper.
Zakia,
all my straight friends paid nothing.
And we had to put it in the newspaper so that the public could oppose it.
My name was Madonna.
Can I say something real quick? I want to go back to something you said because I think it's interesting, and I want to emphasize. You said that you'll be doing something sensitivity training. I live in the state of Florida. Now you all know Florida's a bit different. You know, you're warned about Florida.
Yeah.
You know about that bill they just introduced for the schools.
Yeah, don't say gay.
Don't say gay.
Okay, again, that's another show because we have a lot to talk about, but I definitely would like to speak about that more. But Sherry, the audience real fast because this goes back to something you said earlier. Zakia, Sam Cat Place is saying, do you think that if your group hadn't been judgy and rude in the beginning of your cause for SSM, that the turnout would have been different? Let's be real, there was rudeness on both sides. Now, you already clarified that your group was not responsible. You have never been rude. But let's look at, I think what this person's referring to is if you go on Twitter yesterday, there's one group that's dominating. If you go, and I only did it because my good sister said, don't go on the RG. And what did I go and do? Go on the comments.
No. I want us to make sure we're using good time, Jamal. Like, I don't know. The truth of the matter is that people are not like, they're splitting hairs about who the group is and who it isn't, right? So look for a quote from us. It's very different. Also, if I am speaking, I speak for myself, and I am very mindful, right? I clip my wings and I play nice with the people. And so, but there are other folks, which I don't believe in censorship, who may have the LGBT community's best interests at hand, but are free to say what they want to say. And so I want to make sure that people are not comparing like us, because the truth of the matter is people didn't even know when we first started, right? And I'm not picking on the person who has a question, but we first started as Bermuda Bread Company, and we were a company limited by guarantee, and we were very quiet, right? And so we absolutely were not rude. Now, there were others who certainly that title may be applied, but it wasn't us. And that's not to, throw rocks and hide our hand. That's not our plan. We don't have the luxury. But I will say, one, I laughed at you, Jamal, for you to say 30 countries have same-sex marriage and then start listing out Qatar and Jamaica and whatever. I laugh because I'm like, it's really convenient and it's beautiful how Bermuda can kind of pick and choose where like what side of the world we want to be friends with when it's convenient, right? Where we get our news, where we run, what little, we can just choose that. And when it's convenient, we want to be over here with, with the groups that we in no way put ourselves in sentences with any other time when we're talking about where our tourists come from, where our business interests lie, where our corporate entities recruit, like that, those aren't those places. And so I think it's really interesting that, and the judgment says that too. It's like, which Bermuda will count itself among is a line in there, right? Where they talk about other countries that have made progressive moves. And then Bermuda should be in that number. Yet now we're choosing to put ourselves in a number with people in any other circumstance. We do not necessarily align ourselves. And secondly, I would encourage Bermudians, a question that sits on my heart, we don't have lobbyists and whatnot, is who has been pushing the agenda for this anti-LGBT sentiment? Because to have, taking us to court, laws, taking us to court again, laws, taking us to appeal, laws, going to Privy Council, you don't think someone has an agenda? You think that your folks, when the pieces have shifted, the politicians have shifted over those years, yet the focus on not having marriage has remained. That to me is interesting. If this is the U.S., I would have some opinions.
Well, let me clarify. The great thing about having a mic is that you don't have to get lost in translation. So when it comes about the dirty countries, let me be very clear for everyone listening. I guarantee you, a lot of people who support people's right to marry have visited or want to visit many countries who don't value the simplest of a woman's right. That's my point in that. It's not but that's my point. That is my point right there. So we have to be consistent is what I'm asking people to do. That's what I'm asking. Let's be consistent. You know, after Trayvon Martin was murdered, Stevie Wonder said he's not going to perform in Florida anymore because of the stand your ground law. What I'm asking people to do is you can't just support a group like Out Bermuda with words. Support. We want to talk about the dollar. Think about that dollar. If you know that this place doesn't value the simplest human right, of course they're not going to do that. So my comparison in using those countries, 30 countries that allow it, is pretty much saying these are the countries that don't. These countries are doing well. You know why they're doing well? Because of people like you. Not you guys in particular, but I'm just, you get my point? So it's really I think we have so much more to discuss, and I really want to encourage people to read the judgment. I'm going to do it because I'm very intrigued by it, and especially at the fact that if it doesn't bother you, if nothing bothers you about this, at least one thing should. If the Human Rights Act can be overridden, like think about it, overridden by the Constitution, we all should be concerned citizens of Bermuda, regardless of where you stand. And there was a gentleman, Zaskia, you probably know him. He got teased for being called Don King recently. He's got big gray hair, and he criticized the U.S. Constitution, saying on The View, he said it's trash, and people went at him. And the point he was making is that when that Constitution was written, who do you think looked like me that wrote that Constitution? And I think that's the point Adrian was making in the most diplomatic way. He's a nice guy. I don't have to be nice. But I'm saying, I simply want people to think about that stuff, though. Think about it.
I agree. But the thing is, one I will say, and I say it flippantly, and I love my people, is that Bermudians are not necessarily as familiar. And I used to, I consulted for the Human Rights Commission, is that like the understanding of human rights is we have a lot of work to do. People understand animal rights better than they understand human rights in Bermuda. Right? We oftentimes say human rights, and we mean race rights. We mean gender rights specifically. Human rights are more broad. And similarly on the Constitution, in America, when someone says it's unconstitutional, that holds weight. Also because people are very familiar with the amendments. There may be one or two amendments, not all of them, but they know, right? Like 14th Amendment, that amendment. Bermuda, we are not there. So therefore, for people to now lean on it, I do think there's an opportunity for education around what they are. There are a lot of, I wouldn't say violations in Bermuda, but there are places in Bermuda where people's human rights are being infringed upon, right? Where people don't understand what rights they have. And that I think is really, is also a really great opportunity for people to just get in line, for us to work across, not even across purposes, but in concert with, other entities who want the same thing, is for people to be informed and for folks to want to push together for just a better world. I mean, I think about that with disabilities. Like we don't have an ADA, we don't have an American Disabilities Act, right? We didn't have closed captions till a long time ago, recent, right? Like things like that. We don't have ramps. Right. And so there are tons of opportunities where there are places for growth. And it's not just around LGBT rights, right? But human rights in general and protections for whatever part of your identity is worthy of access, support, accommodation. There are places for that. And LGBT, we don't even need accommodation. We want what we deserve. What I was born with, I want that. Before I knew I want those things. Right?
Before we head out, what are some final words you want to leave those with, and I think you need to speak to, because again, I mentioned lobbying. I know you spoke of it going forward. What would you say to those who oppose your stance as we head out? Like, what would you say to just, speak to the conscience of those people?
Good, Amy. I mean, cheer for conscience at your own peril is what I would say. Cheer for inequality at your own peril. There's no world in which you work that muscle and you see how it comes back at you. I would say that.
Adrian?
Yeah, and I would say that, I mean, my hope is marriage equality is coming.
It is.
It wasn't yesterday, but it's coming. The majority, the population, the groundswell of support is already on the way, and so it's I don't want to say it's fait accompli, but I'm very. It's coming, and so as Zakia said, protest and celebrate, have that. That's fine, but you will be on the losing side in terms of this particular issue.
All right, Adrian, Zakia, thank you so much. I just want to say before you go, you said something earlier, and I want to let you know that had this show been around many years ago, we would have offered our platform to you. So, you know, it's not like, oh, because it's hot, oh, let's get them on. No, it's what I've been doing for ages. I remember Junior Birchall back in 2007. Junior Birchall brought someone on, and we spoke about this when it was not a good, like it was not normal. And I was at another radio station. So I'm open to these conversations for the sake of educating people.
Thank you for having us.
So thank
you so much for the platform.
Yeah. Thank you for the platform. Thank you for using your voice. And there are wins along the way. And I don't say that as an revisionist way. There are wins. There's so many wins. Ask somebody. Just ask an LGBT person you know what they count as a win in the last 7 years. They will not be talking about one. I don't even know the date myself. But there are so many beautiful moments where people have taken the time and made a choice to support the folks in their life. Right. And there's a companies, there's a entities, there's a families, there's a faith people. And like, if we are not counting that, we will lose. If you are not counting the people who are choosing to be like on your side when it mattered, in history, we always have to cheer for our allies. We have to stand in solidarity with people. And Bermuda has done that. Like, and if you want to make a list, I can make it. But I promise you.
Before you go, a real quick joke. I've got to end it on a jokey side. So Zakia and I won the same flight leaving last time, right? Real quick. And I'm glad that she's here and able to be here, folks. And I say this truthfully.
It was touch and go.
Folks, there was a gentleman sitting right behind Zakia. And we're talking, this was prime COVID, Omicron. And when I say the cough was bad, and I'm looking at her, she's looking at me with texting. I'm like, yo, you good? Like, I thought she was in trouble. Folks.
I said, I'm never going to breathe again. I'm never going to breathe again.
I'm working on a flight.
Like, Jamal, he's coughing on me.
Yeah, it was bad. But hey, guys, if any time you need to this platform, reach out. We've got you. Let's keep it going.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jamal. Thanks, Sherry.
No
All
problem.
right, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks again to Adrian and Zakia, folks. Do not go anywhere. If you appreciated that conversation, give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Hey, folks, sometimes it just comes down to a bit of education. Agreement, not necessarily. Education may be. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, wrap it up, and speak about a giveaway that we'll be doing as well.
A lot happens around your home. That is why at One Communications, we have introduced affordable security and video monitoring, because everyone should be able to afford to protect their family. Anytime, from anywhere, One Home Security keeps you connected and puts security in your hands with an easy-to-use smartphone app to control everything. Home security is important to keep you and your family safe. Motion-activated cameras around your home and security monitoring within create a complete security system providing protection both inside and outside your home. Professional monitoring means that there's someone on call with 24/7 protection to notify the authorities and help keep you and your loved ones safe. We are dedicated to whole home protection with indoor and outdoor cameras, smart door locks, motion sensors, and more, so you'll always be connected to what matters most. With professional installation, no upfront hardware fees, and low monthly rates, because keeping your family safe should be affordable for everyone. Total home video monitoring and security. There's no better way to protect your home than with One Home Security.
Sherry Vanderpool, I'm Jamal Hartman. Thanks again to One Communications, Medical Lenders, and people. So I was just going to jump right in. Sherry, let me first apologize. I felt like I was dominating the show because, you know.
I'm
so sorry. Normally I apologize to her after the show, but I'm very much into it because, folks, I want people to understand it's not about agreeing. It's about you can't agree unless you understand something, right, Sherry?
And we talked about that a little bit earlier. You have to be informed to make an informed decision, and the decision doesn't have to be in a line with the other person. It just has to be an understanding of both. Even though you may disagree at the end, at least I understand where Jamal's coming from. I understand where Zakia and Adrian are coming from. I may not agree, but I don't have to have negative energy towards information that I've received. And I think that's the big thing that happens in Bermuda.
Yeah, like it's crazy. And the only reason I keep telling people, I mean, you know, again, it bothered me when Dr. Brown said it will end one day. And I know it probably bothers them, but I believe, Adrian, it will happen. I think if you polled Bermudians scientifically today, absolutely they would be in favor. It's tough. And I cannot relate to their exact struggle. I can't because my fight was different in that respect. But my hope from all of this is that we become a more educated community, you know. And Sherry, I don't know if you remember in 1991, I believe, when Magic Johnson retired after saying that he was had HIV. The community was very uneducated. You know, players didn't want to play with him. That's another example there, right, of how education helps. Go ahead, Sherry. Sorry.
Yeah. And then, you know, I get in hot water about this all the time. And the simplistic thing to me is, what if a family member or your child is indicating that this is how they feel and how they want to identify? I've always said that. And what is your reaction to that? Aren't you supposed to be still loving, nurturing, caring, and so forth? And people are like, you shouldn't say that. I said, but I feel like that's the truth. You know, how would I feel? And I want to still love my family member and love my child and love whom's around me. So, you know, it's interesting, just the mind shift on people's thoughts in regards to this.
Indeed. And as I stated, you know, I mean, I don't think it's over. I think they have a lot to build on, and we'll see. Douglas Trueblood says, great program and discussion today. I thank all of you for this conversation. Thanks, Jamal, for giving our LGBTQ plus community this platform. Hope to connect again. Karen Simmons says, education is key. Thanks for providing this conversation. Jody Virgin says, thank you so much for a wonderful and important conversation. Equity is important on all levels, and education is vital to increase in understanding and awareness. And that's why I say that I felt like they're looking for equity, like even playing equality is literally even playing field. Equity just meets people where they are and gives them the opportunity. So, Sherry, what are your final thoughts on the entire conversation today?
Oh, I was gonna say, I thought I said it, but at the end of the day, and I'll say it again, you know, information is key. I feel like everyone needs to be heard, and I want you to make an informed decision. Let's not just take what we see on TV and take what we see, you know, or hear about. Actually research different things and make a decision based on that, not what necessarily is continuously fed to you, which can be negative.
Yeah.
Let's look at all aspects.
I think, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not in anyone's bedroom. I don't want to be, but I think that our you know, she said something, Zakia, that really is so true. People love animals, care more about animals' rights than human rights. Here's my take from this. It has nothing to do with people's right to marry. It has everything to do with people understanding and educating themselves on the laws of the land. Because biggest takeaway from what I've read in this case so far is the Constitution from what year, Sherry?
91.
Sherry?
93. Sorry.
Here we go. It's
97.
time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Heineken 0.0. Great taste, no alcohol. Sherry, are you ready? It's remember when. What year did the Bermuda Constitution come into effect?
Sugar.
I was literally trying to set you up right into it.
But why you just didn't finish saying it? Was 1992?
No.
93? 97. I was right in that sense. 99? 19. You said it earlier, innit?
No, I stopped myself from saying it earlier.
Somebody got it yet? I feel like we'll run out of time, Jamal. Let's get the answer. 1960. Well, Rashida would get it.
Nana Pam got it. It was 1968, folks. The Constitution was written. 81 was the Human Rights Act. We need some daily inspiration after that, Sherry.
Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, "I'm possible."
Right. She's possible after that. 1968, the Bermuda Constitution of 1968. It is.
I just love this.
Folks, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget, you participate in our trivia on our Facebook page. Give your self a chance to win some prizes. And make sure you subscribe to our website as well. Thanks again to our partners, Mikemoras, One Communications, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. Give us a thumbs up, a like, a share. Sherry Vanderpool, I'm Jamal Hartman. my friends.
Cheers.
Make it a safe and great day. Yeah, 1990, whatever. Let me tell you.